Hello, everyone. Today, I'd like to quickly talk about diversity and inclusion initiatives and programs. We know intuitively that diversity matters. We also know increasingly that it makes sense from a business standpoint. I will say that diversity and inclusion is a top to bottom business strategy. It's not just something that's owned by HR, promoted by HR. Everybody is responsible for creating an inclusive workforce. And I'd like to talk a little bit about the benefits of a diverse and inclusive workforce. Research finds that companies in the top quartile for gender, racial, and ethnic diversity are outperforming those that aren't. Diversity is probably the competitive differentiator as market shifts towards a global workforce, and these companies are able to hire and attract top tier talent and are more innovative. So let's review the brief framework of how to create a diversity and inclusive program. The first one is data collection and analysis. You've got to understand your employee demographics, and you have to figure out the percentage in each protected group. So that's age, disability, national origin, veteran status, race, religion, all the protected groups under the Civil Rights Act of 1964. Some employers already have this information available in their HRIS. Most American companies have some type of equal employment opportunity reporting requirement, or you can even survey your employees. But you've got to first understand what your workforce looks like, and you've got to compare that to the market and your industry. And then you've got to drill down and see what are your areas of concern. You need to look first, doing a high-level review of demographics by protected groups such as age, sex, race, but then you want to see what is your demographic makeup by location, by department, by position, etc., and figure out where there's underrepresented groups. And I'll give you an example. Microsoft determined that their entire executive team was made up of older white males. And this was a challenge for their industry, considering the fact that in a few years, 65% of the workforce will be women and minorities. So they said, wow, we have an underrepresented lack of diversity in our executive management team, and that's going to affect our ability to attract and recruit talent in the future. So they developed a goal to focus in on minority and female recruiting initiatives. So you want to identify any areas of concern. The second is to address that with a policy or a practice, such as Microsoft. Using Microsoft as an example, they have a Girls in STEM program where they go and help young women enter the STEM field, get education in STEM field, and have STEM education, science, tech, engineering, and math as early as middle school. So they have a particular policy to improve and help women in STEM careers. Another great example would be Walmart. They set a goal of hiring 250,000 veterans in their veteran and military program. By 2020, they've already surpassed that. Dell Computers did the same and said, we're going to focus in on veteran hiring because we have an underrepresented group, and they set to hire 3,000 veterans. So how are you going to address this with a policy or a practice? The third is identify your business objectives. It's very, very important to figure out what you're going to go after and how you're going to address it. And when you think about a business objective, it should be something that you can obtain. It should be something that you can form a program around and something that your business can support. The next would be to procure buy-in and support. And I want to really highlight that this is very, very important. Any diversity initiative to succeed has to have senior level buy-in. It's got to be from the top to the bottom. The senior level must understand why we're doing it, okay, and must be for it. All right. And that includes an alignment to strategic goals. It is helpful to even identify a senior level diversity cheerleader or champion who can really be tasked with being the visible cheerleader champion for your diversity initiative and ultimately responsible for keeping it alive. Um, you want to make sure that they're involved in promoting the training events, the community events, engaging coworkers in these diversity and inclusion events, and making sure that they're the senior level leaders are reviewing and developing policies and procedures that promote workplace fairness. The next would be to implement initiatives, and that could be program design, project management. It's also getting out there and communicating the initiatives. This has to be early, often, and constant. So creating a communication plan that includes social media, videos, print material, community, getting out there in the community, making sure that everybody inside the organization knows about the program, and your vendors, your distributors, your external contacts. You've got to get out there early and often. People interpret your messages differently, so you've got to use a variety of medium, including visual, auditory, prints, you name it. Get out there, do it a lot, and do it often, and keep doing it. The next would be to measure the results. And I'm going to say what gets measured gets done. So it's an imperative to measure the results of your diversity initiative and put some key performance indicators or metrics behind your program. Outcomes such as increased representation in identified groups, increased employee engagement, improved employee retention. You could even look at internal promotion rates, employee turnover. You could even look at things like community awards or social media accolades. So it's important that you define and measure and report how successful your diversity program is. And you've got to make sure that you communicate those to everybody so they know that this is not just, a check the box program, that this is something that's your organization and is passionate about. So let's review holistically what's important to get a diversity and inclusion program to work in your company. It's got to be a focus and a strategy driven by the CEO and the Chief Operations Officer. It's also got to have a change or culture champion who's going to sponsor the program and keep it alive. You've also got to figure out a way you're going to measure your leaders' commitment and performance in promoting diversity in the workforce. So that's a look at your performance management systems and making sure that there's some type of behavioral standard or behavioral ranking or marking that you're going to hold your leaders accountable for creating a diverse and fair workforce. You're going to train your people, right? And those are on topics such as cross-cultural awareness, unconscious bias, and things like that. You're going to integrate these strategies across the entire HR function, including recruitment, performance management, leadership assessment, and training and development. And then you're going to try to create some employee networks, such as employee resource groups. You could even do an internal diversity and inclusion cross-functional team or task team. Make sure that you're involved in community outreach groups, and then making sure that you have some type of scorecard or metric for recruiting, such as promotion rates, compensation levels, turnover, like I had said in the earlier slide. So I look forward to reading your ideas this week, and reach out if you want any particular articles or resources about diversity and inclusion. I'm also posting an article and a video about cross-cultural competency and the Lewis model and the Hofstede model, because cross-cultural competencies is an expansion on the older term of just diversity. It's important for us to understand not just who we are here in the westernized culture, but it's important to understand the differences between the US culture and the Japanese culture, the German culture, people in Brazil, people in Australia. We all have our own viewpoints, and it's important to understand those viewpoints when we do business on the global stage. So I look forward to reading your ideas and reach out. Thanks so much and have a great day.